Zariel, you're on.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
We're
Doing
very
good. How are
well.
you doing?
No.
Very well, thank you. Gentlemen, a question on Nord Stream 2. With all of this going on between Russia, the polemic and the rhetoric is, of course, strengthening as days pass by. I can't say weeks anymore. What about Nord Stream 2? Will this have any consequences with them, especially with Angie in Germany, being stuck in NATO, but also wants to keep this thing running? What do you think?
Well, there have been, right, let's start with Biden's press conference, because he's actually asked about Nord Stream 2. And he said, well, Nord Stream 2, it's a complicated matter. So that rather suggested that nothing actually has been, that the US has decided that Nord Stream 2 is going to happen. However, we also hear reports that the Justice Department has drawn up very, very tough sanctions, threatening German companies basically to block Nord Stream 2. So we're hearing discordant things being said. Now, I think if there isn't a war in eastern Ukraine, if the situation dies down, I think Nord Stream 2 will be done. It's almost completed. There were some attempts by the Polish Navy, bizarrely, to harass its construction, but the Russians have basically shrugged that off. I think it will happen, and it will move into operation fairly soon. If there is a war in eastern Ukraine, well, I think Nord Stream 2 is not going to happen, because at that point, the Russians will intervene, and at that point also it becomes politically impossible. There are many people who think that this whole war has been, or rather this threat of war, has been conjured up in order to stop Nord Stream 2. I think that certainly played a part in it. But it looks as if in a situation where the Western powers are scrambling to prevent a war from taking place, Nord Stream 2 will probably take place. We shall see.
Next two questions, very short ones this week, I hope. Any news on the Epstein case and the Ghislaine Maxwell cases?
It's a good question, because I've actually somewhat lost touch with that one. I think we are looking at a trial fairly soon in the summer. And my feeling, this is what I got from when I last looked at this, is that obviously she's now facing a whole string of new charges. And there's a whole string of new witnesses who are coming together. And it looks as if this trial, if it takes place, and I'm going to say why I think it might not take place, but if it takes place, I mean, it'd be a pretty crushing event. And I would have thought we'll see lots of witnesses, and there'll be hearings over several days, or probably weeks actually, and it would be quite a important event. But I have a feeling, I still sense at some level that some kind of a deal will be done in order to avoid a trial and to avoid embarrassing all sorts of people. The question is, will Ghislaine herself agree? We'll see. But as I said, I'm not pretending I'm completely up to date about this, but that was certainly seemed to be the position when I last looked it up a few weeks ago.
Okay, next question. Two gentlemen that are very interesting. We don't hear about very much either, Ed Snowden and Julian Assange. What about those two?
Right. Well, Julian Assange is still in Belmarsh. We now have, in May, apparently, there's going to be the US government's appeal. The Assange's legal team have submitted their responses to the US government's appeal. There was some talk a few weeks ago that the Julian Assange might bring a cross appeal, but in the event he didn't. So it's going to be purely an argument about the U.S. government's appeal against Judge Baritz's decision to refuse extradition, because Assange's health and life might be at risk if he was sent to the United States. And hopefully that will be decided in May, and hopefully, logically, all the legal arguments would suggest that appeal, the American appeal, will be refused. And at that point, Julian Assange will finally be free. I am not holding my breath. I'm not saying that will happen. There have been so many unexpected twists and turns in this. I'm not taking anything for granted. It could very well be that something will happen in that appeal, that the appeal is lost, in which case, or rather succeeds, in which case Assange's team will no doubt appeal to the Supreme Court. So we're still in that legal limbo. And Assange, disgracefully, is still in Belmarsh, even though he's not serving a sentence for any crime for which he's been convicted in Britain, and even though the extradition request to send him to the United States has been refused. So I don't understand the legal basis in which he is in prison, but he is in prison. Now, Edward Snowden is in Russia. He's now apparently accepted that he's going to be living there a long time. He's married to his lifelong partner. I haven't heard much from him for a while. I know he does commentaries from time to time, but he's at least safe in Russia. And perhaps one day he will be able to come to the United States, a free man, but not, I suspect, for a long while.
I've heard somewhere that he actually gave up the US citizenship and acquired the Russian nationality.
I've heard the same. Very difficult for him to do, by the way, I would have thought.
I thought so. I would think so also, but because he does miss his family in the States.
Yes.
Last question, and this is really far removed from the Ukraine arena and even the South China Sea arena. There was a report by The Independent 4 days ago about certain material, very aggressive or I want to be extremely also very, very careful with what I'm saying here on the program, but extremely dangerous material has been stolen in Mexico. And it was, if I correctly remember, it was somewhere around the Mexican-US border. Now, this is not the first time this has happened.
No.
The material is not, it's not enriched material, but it is highly active. It has also been noted that it can be used for a filthy. Would you think that it could be? I'm just grabbing into the air here, but that it might be used if recovered by some kind of institution or organization, that it might be used as another FF against a certain North American country.
Well, it could be. I mean, I'm not going to speculate. I mean, I don't know who'd be responsible for that, but of course it could be. I mean, we don't know who was involved. I mean, bear in mind, in Mexico is a land where there's very highly developed organized crime networks. And when I say highly developed, I mean they operate submarines. I mean, you know, that kind of thing. So they might use it for their own purposes. I mean, I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate, because certainly those possibilities exist, but I'm not going to speculate beyond them.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. That's
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Take care. Have a great weekend.